All right, everyone. Bill de Blasio is having problems, of course, New York City's mayor. Big problems. He's actually got two major issues going on right now. One's from some days ago. Apparently, he has $300,000 in debt. He was facing a probe, and so, you have to hire lawyers. So he hires his attorneys, and he runs up a six-figure debt total. By the way, this is when Sargon was trying to raise money, for his legal case. People are like, oh, well, he needs all this money. A lawyer doesn't cost that much. Bullshit. Trust me, they do. If you have a decent lawyer, it's going to cost a huge amount. If the case is involved at all, if it's one of these low-key cases and you're using some, fucking local lawyer, probably doesn't cost quite that much. But if you're fighting a case that could result in you facing a 6-7 figure fine or imprisonment or something, yeah, it can run you quite a bit. Of course, the state has to pay public defenders in some cases, but if you're hiring your own lawyer, if the state's not doing that for you, yeah, it can run into the 5-figure range easy. Look, de Blasio ran up a $300,000 bill. What he's saying is, I'm not going to pay it back unless the city council lets me use other people's money to do it. So he wants the taxpayers to bail him out after facing an ethics probe. So that's not going over too well. The New York Daily News and a bunch of other groups right now are chastising de Blasio for this. But then there's something even worse, something even more sinister. And that's that de Blasio, and he's being hit for this too now. Essentially, in hiring police, de Blasio and others are sort of optioning it's sort of like affirmative action, really, which is, for policing, a terrible idea. They're like, oh, well, we want to attract more female police and more Jewish police and more black police, and, the list goes on. He's facing pressure now from two extremely powerful and important groups within New York City, the Italian and Irish communities that notably are being left off of this. De Blasio doesn't want more Italian and Irish police, they're saying, and yeah, they are notably absent from this. What do they have in common? I'm not even going to say it because it's so painfully obvious. De Blasio, therefore, is being labeled a bigot, and kind of is. Look, this is the way affirmative action is. Somebody's getting left out. It's just like the old argument that I made, I think this was a couple years ago, like when YouTube promotes people, it doesn't have to be for political reasons. It doesn't have to be for social reasons. It can be totally innocuous. It can be a makeup video. If YouTube promotes one creator, it is essentially demoting all others within that same category. So if YouTube promotes a gardening channel, that essentially fucks me over because I make gardening content. The other person's being promoted. YouTube's not demoting me. It's not using any negative interaction with me whatsoever. But it's promoting a competitor. So it demotes me by default. It's like I used the example, if you have 2 loaves of bread being sold in a market, and they promote one, they have signs up saying, oh, this wonderful tasty bread. They're not doing anything wrong to the competitor except that they're totally overshadowing them. They're using their platform to deny the other competitor an even stage, essentially. It's like, imagine that you've got a billboard up and somebody else puts a billboard in a position so that it blocks the view of yours. They haven't done it. They haven't defaced or vandalized your billboard. They didn't knock it down. They didn't make it smaller. They didn't paint it over. They're hiding it from view. And then if you complain about it, I guess what would be said by de Blasio or affirmative action believers in general as well, nothing wrong is being done to you. It's not discrimination, it's positive reinforcement. Well, no, it's not. For anyone that's not part of that positive group, it is a form of de facto negative reinforcement. So de Blasio's policies there are under fire by groups that, God, there've got to be 1 million people in New York City that are going to be pissed off about this from those 2 communities alone. And they're tightly knit. New York is basically a segregated city. It's the tale of, you go from one block to the next block and the demographic composition is massively different. Now, part of by the way, this can form subcultures within cities that are actually highly appreciated. Think of like the concept of Chinatown or Little Soho or something. And it can actually be a really fun thing because it's like going to a foreign country without going there in many cases. It can be fun. You go to Little Italy, you're like, fucking, I really, really want some calamari right now. Where the hell do you think you're going in New York City to get it? Unless you're like a Manhattan billionaire, like you're Donald Trump, then you can go to your penthouse and get it delivered by helicopter. But New York City is now going to essentially discriminate against certain groups of people in its police hiring, and I don't see that ending well. I don't see, by the way, de Blasio's career ending well. It seems like he's continuously embattled from the left and the right. This scheme with his money is probably going to be less popular. Like, that's the one that blows up in the media. De Blasio institutes discriminatory hiring policies at the city level. Nobody bats an eye unless they're part of a community that's being left out by the discriminatory policies. National media won't really touch it because they don't want to make it seem like they're going up against the sacred cow of affirmative action. Meanwhile, de Blasio has some debt, and he's like, oh, well, maybe the city can pay it off for me, which means the taxpayers. Look, what he'll say, and they always do this, oh, the city will bail me out. You know, I'm your mayor, blah, 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 so the city has to help me. What? Government doesn't make any money of its own. If the government has expended money on something, it was taxpayer money. Usually with an even share across the board of all the people paying into whatever collective pot the government draws out of. It's no different in New York City than in D.C. or anywhere else in the world. That's how it works. Government doesn't produce anything. Unless you have a 100% centralized system in which all industry is administered directly by government, in which case the government owns everything, it itself doesn't produce jack shit. In fact, it has a tendency to run massively negatively and to actually piss productivity away. That is, if they spend $1, they don't get $1 back on their efforts. They've just centralized things for the purposes of inefficient organization. The more centrality, the worse, usually, and this is a big problem in New York City. Meanwhile, you've got America's mayor, you know, the one that actually cleaned fucking New York City up, and to his kudos to him, he actually did. That's not a lie. You think what you want about Giuliani in many other respects. He did a good job, at the very least, with public safety. Now he's off working with Donald Trump. It'd be funny if he weighed in on de Blasio. It'd be funny if he decided, well, I'm going to take a week off, Trump. I got to go back to New York for a while. I've got something else to clean up. You know, it's a big shit stain that's trying to make the whole city swirl down into the sewers. De Blasio does not sound well liked. It just sounds like, from afar, not being in New York City, thankfully, it sounds like he's really, really on the skids as far as his career. Sort of like, is he going to approach Chris Christie levels of corruption and thus approval? That would be really, really funny. That's about all. Peace out.